Good morning and welcome to REtalk. I'm Matt Wilkerson,
And I'm Ted Bangs.
and we're here to talk about all things real estate.
Mm-hmm.
So, Ted, this is a great one this morning. So, looking at what's coming up for 2020 in real estate, I think one of the things we're going to see a lot of is talk about cars in big cities. How do we have fewer of them? How do we have car-free zones? How do we have car-free neighborhoods? Big question mark.
Yeah, I mean, this is a kind of out there topic to most of the viewers, probably, and frankly to myself as well. I didn't know this was as big of a trend as it is, but apparently there is a push in more congested cities like New York City,
Right.
like Dallas, like Los Angeles, and places, Chicago, where people are trying to back away from the congestion, even in the heavily populated downtown areas. Now they're doing this in a manner of different ways.
It's interesting. They're all attacking a little bit differently. You're seeing things like in San Francisco, they're looking at Market Street, one of the busiest streets in downtown San Francisco. They're looking at closing Market Street to just pedestrians and taxis and some ride sharing, but all other motor vehicles would be asked to stay off. That way they can make sidewalks wider, make bike lanes bigger. New York's looking at increasing the amount it takes to come into the city. So if you're trying to enter New York City in prime hours, you may be charged anywhere from $11 to $25 a car. I mean, that would keep me out of the city. Or finding another way. These are cities that have the infrastructure. They've got public transportation. They have bus systems. They are walkable. You don't necessarily need a car when you're in New York City.
Yeah, and I mean, having lived in Boston myself
Yes.
and Dallas for the majority of my
That's
life,
right.
I understand both sides of this argument. I do understand Dallas, driving right to where you want because it's hot here.
That's how we do
And,
it.
but at the same time, I did always love that in the Northeast, I walked a lot, which just tended to keep me in better shape and I felt healthier and all those things. So I wonder if there's like a happy middle ground that we could get to at some point. But
So I do believe in a middle ground, but let's talk about this crazy stuff out in Phoenix, Arizona. Now, I've spent a lot of time in Phoenix. And so when I read this article, it blew me away because the number one thing I think of when I think of Phoenix is it's hot. It's real hot. So what we found is there's a neighborhood that they're looking to build there called, it's a venture capitalist company, of course. They're throwing money at all sorts of things, but this is for a carless neighborhood, Ted.
yeah, I mean, Cul-de-sac is the company it's a San Francisco based company that's going after this project.
It was started by a guy named Ryan Johnson, who was a vice president at Open Door, another sort of disruptor, controversial company out there. So he left Open Door to do this.
And basically his plan is to create a builder community basically that's set up so that cars don't enter it.
Right.
Maybe there's a big old bank or carport
right.
that everyone parks their cars, and then you would walk, I don't know, pick a distance,
That's
half
right.
a mile maybe to your home. But it would be littered with other things like retail spaces, entertainment, and just things to do, things
Right.
to check out and see.
Now, obviously, people in that area are highly skeptical of this because, Phoenix is built on sprawl. It's one of the reasons that their real estate is so affordable. They've just kept building and building. And, the idea that they're going to get out and walk in 117 degrees in the summertime just isn't really hitting home with a lot of people that are there and are critics so far in this adventure. Now, they do have $10 million in venture funding already.
Oh yeah,
but I think that's of $140 million that the project's estimated to cost. So the VCs aren't dumping money here yet.
Not quite yet, but the project is dubbed Cul-de-sac Tempe. Tempe. My mistake.
No worries. It's Tempe, Arizona, which is about I think it's 8 to 10 miles from Phoenix. But a dense area, but still, ain't many people walking.
Yeah, and I mean, this neighborhood that's planned, it is planned to be on a light rail, and it has plenty of other public transportation around it. So you wouldn't even really need a car in the first place, although they just envisioned that this would help promote less high congestion
Also, they do think that there's 90,000 students at Arizona State, so they do think this could be something that maybe, if we were able to make it housing for students, or if they could utilize it, that may be a way that this works. They could maybe do that.
Yeah.
Yes, not everybody has a car in college these days, I guess.
Well, you'd be. I've helped out tenants or
Sure.
clients that have come to Dallas that have asked me, "Do you need a car in Dallas?"
That's
I'm
right.
like, well, yes,
Yeah, you're
you
going to need
do.
a car.
But I mean, there are those that are adamant about trying to live the life without one in
That's
town.
right.
And
So Ted, I can't wait to hear what people think about this subject. I think it's going to
Absolutely.
be interesting. I think it's going to be one that people feel strongly about.
yeah, so let's go ahead and turn it on over to our discussion panel and see what all the professionals have to say.
Let's do it.
Thank you all for joining us. Today on our discussion, we have Bess Dixon. Bess, say hello.
Howdy, folks.
And we have Brian Davis. Brian, say hello.
Good afternoon.
And today we are talking about the topic of the hour, which are car-free communities and whether or not those are a sustainable idea in the future, if this is a trend that might continue, or what your thoughts are therein. Brian, let's start with you. Do you have any feedback or any opinion?
Yeah, so I think they're really interesting, and especially as someone who is a car collector, I'm a single person with 3 vehicles myself, and it definitely raises some questions in my mind about the place for people like me moving forward. That said, I was going through my desk and had completely forgotten about a brochure I have for the first of its kind in Dallas that I'm aware of, and it's called Urban Commons. And the concept behind it is neat because you would essentially live in a 0 lot line home, and on the perimeter of the community will be garages that are not included but are available for an extra charge that you, I believe in this case, would buy. I don't think they're rental. And then the roofs of the garage are solar panels, and that electricity that's generated will provide electricity for the common areas. So I think that's a really neat idea. I would want to make sure that proper planning had been done for emergency vehicle access and for moving trucks. I think that could be an issue. And then just kind of regular basis things that I think might get annoying after a while, like carrying groceries in, especially if it's raining. And
That's why Amazon, right?
Well, that's right. And so, I think in the short term, certainly there are probably some growing pains, but 5 to 10 years from now, the way that we all live, frankly, may not necessitate having a car of your own. So I think it's a cool idea. Where I think it's really neat is with larger condo and apartment buildings so that you eliminate the cost and the space needed to have huge parking garages. And so I think there could be tremendous benefits there. And just imagine how much less expensive a 30-story condo building would be if there were no parking garage attached to it, or that you had to dig underneath the building to construct. So I'm excited for that.
Okay. Now, Bess, do you have something to add?
Well, tying into what Brian was saying, that might be one reason why many cities have begun mandating when they do have parking garages, they're now mandating that they are single levels. If they don't have, but generally parking garages, they always have that a extreme angle. You ever been in some of the older ones, especially in downtown Dallas, where it's almost like a spiral?
Yeah.
And now they're mandated that there's single level, so that the idea being, let's build forward. In the future, those parking garages are going to be repurposed. That's an interesting zoning trend to watch, because other people are thinking along the same things that Brian is, and that is, we may not need that in the foreseeable future. As far as you were saying, groceries delivered in the rain, drones, anyone?
Hey, I mean,
That's really wrong.
really forward thinking, right?
But one thing that I thought was interesting in the article you shared with us, Ted, and that is the developers were talking about how and how moving forward we were trying to be more environmentally correct. And I got a little chuckle in the fact that they still were practically zoning the same amount of parking spaces anyway for everybody that came and visited, everybody that was there without a car. And secondly, they were building it in an area that had never, ever, ever that basically was once open desert, and now they were going to turn that into this planned perfect utopian society. I thought, oh, that's quite ironic. They're really trying to be green. I wonder why they didn't repurpose some of the less than best housing, warehousing that's already built in Tucson. It was Tucson, right? No, Tempe, excuse me. Anyway,
Yeah.
that would have been much more significant if they had gone that route versus, anyway, there's a bit of irony there in my head that, we're going to tear down.
Yeah. Matt, do you have anything to wrap us up?
I think it's interesting. I think, Brian had shared with me the development that he was looking at, and I think it's a very different conversation in about 10 years. I think we're right on the cusp of this, and I think millennials will be a huge driver in this. I think they're already abandoning cars and
Yes.
finding other ways. Living on the West Coast, of course, they had zip cars, which were shared cars with a monthly fee that you just paid by the unit. So I think there's all kinds of solutions for that, and I think we'll get there. I think it's a tough sell in places like Dallas and Arizona where you have extreme temperatures. So it makes it a little less. And in both Dallas and Dallas and Arizona have limited public transportation. It's not the greatest public transportation. So I think as you see the improvements with that, you see millennials really come into full force, and people get more used to the idea of not having, like at our house, 1 to 3 cars for 2 people. I think this becomes a different conversation. I think we're all going to look back and remember this talk and find that it's very relative and not that's so far to the future.
Well, anyway, that's some great comments, y'all. Bess, Brian, as always, a pleasure having you on. We look forward to having you on again.
All right, and we're back. Well, that was a good talk.
Something. Yeah, I knew people were going to be passionate about this one.
Yeah, well, as I've learned more, I think I'm starting to become a believer on the car-free city.
I don't know. I'm not sold yet.
Well, I'll tell you what. I would be worried about resaleability, but hey, that might be a topic for another time.
Not to mention in a city like Phoenix, where you have so many snowbirds and people retire there, they're much less likely to give up a car. I don't know. We could argue about this one for the next week.
Yeah. Well, hey, if you haven't already, please like and subscribe. If you'd like to hear more from us, we'll be posting videos here.
That's right.
Somewhat close to every week, and we'd love to have you to watch.
That's right. And please tell us about your interest in your REtalk. We'd love to hear your thoughts on car-free and car-free neighborhoods and cities or other deterrents of driving.
Well, anyway, see you next time.
Good episode. Thanks so much, guys.